T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here's your career affirmation. You're going to rock that interview and get that job.
Good morning, everyone. I am Anna Morgan, your career BFF. I help lost job seekers go to confident job closers by helping them squash imposter syndrome, boost their confidence, and move through their job search with ease and flow, discovering fabulous self-love and habits and tools to show up as their best self. And I'm just super happy to be here. So it looks like we're having some tech difficulties. Not sure what that's all about. So give me just a moment to see what's going on here. Oh, you know what it was, y'all? Total user error on Anna Morgan's fault. I was in the studio on StreamYard and I was on mute. So maybe when I played my intro, because I was on mute, it didn't play. But if you really want to see my intro, just go back to the previous 5 other episodes and you can watch it. It's kind of lengthy. So we're just going to dive right in. Messy aligned action. That's what I'm all about, and how I coach my job seekers to take action, because progress, not perfection. So that is probably what's up. So let me say hello to everyone. We have Balwinder in the house. We've got Amanda here. Allison is here. She's going to watch it later. I love it. Amanda is low key, gets her most of the time. Awesome. Cynthia Dunn is in the house. Everyone, meet my new friend, Cynthia. She is looking to potentially join the talent acquisition space. So connect with her and let's all lift her up and see how we can be of service. We got Kevin O'Hare in the house. And of course, we have the famous Dan. No dogs barking. I wasn't able to get my act together today to set up my, system. We've had a bunch of thunderstorms in the area today, and that makes 2 of my dogs, my black dogs, Lula and Murphy, very nervous. And one of them, nervous poops around the house. So that's really fun. I never thought I'd say that in a live, but that's what you get with authentic Anna Morgan. So here we are. So listen, there has been a lot going on where people, it seems like the sky is falling. Oh my gosh, a recession is coming. What is happening? Everyone's running around. It's raining cats and dogs. What is happening? How are we going to find a job? The long-term unemployed folks are freaking out because the newly laid off people are making these viral posts, and there's a perception that they're getting scooped up because of that visibility. And I just want everyone to take a big old deep breath and calm yourself. Like the market, and if we look back at history, there has always been massive market, fluctuations, right? And if we have survived 2020, we are going to just, take what we've learned from 2020, 2021, and we are going to use that agility, that resilience, that grit, that innovation, those problem solving skills, the relationships that we've built, and we're going to navigate what we're about to face. There's been a lot of discussion, and I want to preface this that my opinions are, simply mine, and most of them come from, a place of intuition. The very first live I did here was how to be recession and layoff ready. So if you haven't checked that out, go back to episode 1. And there's definitely some good pointers about getting your finances in ready, how you can cut cost, some just, no nonsense practical things that you can do. So you are ready, right? So now we're talking about, this collective kind of nervous energy that I'm seeing specifically on LinkedIn. And I have talked to some of my peers that are definitely feeling that as well. And we have seen how quickly the market has shifted. So, just as recently as December, January, February, everyone was talking about what a candidate market it was and how, salaries were increasing and candidates were demanding more and were being able to leverage a lot more options. And we were seeing a little bit more flexibility with companies offering more remote work and hybrid work, right? And then, so that was like the great reshuffle. Now, since then, and since I would say late 2020, early 2021, we've definitely had this awakening where people are like, okay, what really matters, right? Do we want to spend all this time pouring into this employer and spending 40, 50, 60 plus hours a week doing work that takes away from time with our kids or, zaps our physical and mental health, right? So that's been really, in my opinion, a positive effect of the pandemic and what we have been through, right? There's been this collective awakening about our, self-care and our mental health, right? And it's created more conversations, and more conversations, expand transformation and create change. So that's a positive, right? So yay, check for that. Can I get a couple hearts for that? Now, we have had, a lot of, I would say, baby boomer traditionalists that have decided to retire early, right? And then you have my generation, Gen X. There are just from a number of births of Gen X, really not enough people to fill those seats, right? And then you have millennial Gen Zs coming in, which are very much go-getters, innovators. They want to, really be catalysts for change, have big ideas. Millennials got kind of a bad rap for a couple years about, really bucking the system that boomers and traditionalists had kind of designed in regards to, be super loyal to your employer and work there 10 years and, climb the corporate ladder. And thanks to millennials, they kind of came in and started busting that myth, right? And now we have a little bit more of this flexible work environment. And hopefully this will continue. It's going to have to continue, right? Because in order to access talent. And I want to put in the chat, one of my friends posted this article today. It's a long read. It's 17 minutes, and it took my ADHD butt probably 30 minutes to get through it. But I was absolutely fascinated because it talks about how organizations can leverage talent that is, returning to the workforce, that has, maybe has a side business, or a that wants to work part-time, or has been in the gig economy. I'm seeing a lot of data that supports organizations being much more flexible, and not judgmental around, taking breaks to care for family members, for yourself, or just to have a career break. So if that is something that you are facing, just know that it is not nearly as much of a critical component that recruiters and hiring managers would evaluate candidates on as they did, 3 to 5 years ago. And I can say that confidently sitting in the recruiting seat today. So I'm going to pause for a moment and take a little sip of water. I would be curious to see what you all are seeing out there. And I'm going to grab this article and put it in the comments for you. And, I just would be interested to hear some of the tricks and tactics that you would advise your best friend if they are starting to panic about this market. Because, a couple of the things that I'm thinking about is, and I've learned this the hard way when I have been, whether it's like looking at my business, or even, I think we're all essentially job seekers, right? Whether you're an active job seeker or passive job seeker, staying in tune with the market, right? But there's sometimes that we have to be vigilant about turning down the content that we're consuming. Because if you notice that, like, gut feeling that really just causes that anxiety, or really starts making your heart race a little bit faster, or just doesn't elicit, a response that is nourishing to get your desired results around your job, then, maybe mute that piece of content, or that article, or that, creator for a period of time. I'm just going to put that in the piece of content, or in the comments there. And I have to thank my friend Jackie Johnston. She's a talent organizational and development leader. She posted this. It's produced from McKinsey Company, but the content is amazing, and there's a lot of really good data to support, what's happening with organizations right now. All right, Tegan says, reducing the negative content we consume is a great strategy while on the job search. So this is really important, because I have found personally, like, one of the ways that will flare my imposter syndrome, my not enoughs, my like, oh, I'm not doing this right, right, is if I start, consuming a bunch of content of similar people in my space, right? And I can get twisted about that. And so the same thing applies for job seekers. There is no perfect way to execute a job search. There is no perfect way to execute a job search. And I'm going to stand firm in saying that, because any expert or coach that's going to tell you that you have to do these 10 things perfectly and you will land the perfect dream job is blowing smoke up your hiney. Okay. And I know my fellow coaches here will likely agree with me, because everyone's background is different. You bring different skill sets, you bring different unfortunate circumstances from your past career journeys into your new opportunities. In theory, looking for a job is simple, but executing it is actually very complex. So the other thing I was thinking about, what would be a quick tip that would help someone that is feeling this, weight right now, that is going, oh, SHIT, like, if I don't find a job in the next, 4 weeks, I am going to be in a world of trouble. So I always think back, like I put myself in your shoes, right? And, I've been faced recently with some potential insecurity with my full time job, right? And so, I've amped up my networking. I'm taking more coffee chats. I am reading the emails that come in about job opportunities. I'm, more willing to, respond and have those conversations on a consistent level. But I will definitely take that time to um, get centered, right? And look at having all my assets in place, right? Is my resume up to date? Do I have, those tangible stories where if somebody asked me for my resume and I had to step into an interview right away, I could crush that interview, right? Am I using this downtime to practice? Would, I call Tegan or Dan and be like, hey, can we just do a mock interview real quick so I'm fresh, The next thing I was thinking about is as a sales professional, back in my recruiting days when I worked in agency, and I think this applies really anywhere, your time is money, your time is valuable. So any time that you are spending, say, consuming content that is not going to move you forward in your job search, or potentially talking to people that aren't going to potentially be in service of your end goal, I really invite you to look at those activities, right? So when I was in the agency world, I had to be really vigilant about my time because there's only 8 hours in the day, right? And I wanted to maximize making sure that I was driving the right kind of opportunities and getting the right kind of candidates into those positions. So I would always ask myself the question, is the activity I'm doing right now going to put the, money in my pocket essentially? And so you can reframe that as a job seeker and think, is the activity I'm doing right now and the way I've structured my day, or the activities that I'm doing on LinkedIn, are those activities in service of my ultimate goal? Because if we are not super intentional in this strategy, this is where you start to find the burnout, where that imposter syndrome creeps in, where you start to doubt yourself, and stepping away and just putting together some small compartmental goals to make sure that you are staying in alignment, right, with your personal and professional goals, and then taking those actions each day in service of your ultimate goal, right? And if you need support, we have the Job Collection Tuesday, we have office hours. There are tons of people on the platform that can, within reason, be of service. There are a lot of coaches, especially in the Job Collection Tuesday, that have been willing to offer some discounted services for resume help, strategy sessions, LinkedIn help. So definitely take advantage of those if you just need an extra set of eyes and extra support. So let's see. Hi, Barsha is here. Oh, and Dan says he doesn't watch Fox News. Yes, be very careful about what you consume. And yes, watch the daily distractions. And that's why I really suggest that if you are one of the more talent that has been looking for work for a longer time, it is important to have a structure, right? And I always encourage that you put your self-care first, making sure that you're getting your me time, your meditation and exercise time in, because that dopamine hit that you get from moving your body really helps just all the other areas, right? It helps you manage your stress. A lot of times, especially for the neurodiverse like myself, it helps us concentrate a little bit better. And then, it's also, I see lately when we get in the space of uncertainty, people tend to want to cast this wide net and they want to say, well, I can do anything, right? And I used to joke with people like, Well, okay, can you come and wrap my Christmas presents for me? Like, I mean, you have to have some clarity around, what you can do. And that's where it takes some time to sit down and really look at, where you've had success. What have you done that's really lit you up, and where your energy comes naturally? What people say that you're really good at, take note of that. If you have been in job search for a while, or even if you're new, reach out to a couple past coworkers and say, what are 5 words that you would use to describe me? I've done that in the past, and I've used that as, a way to help build my personal brand. I've used it as kind of a tool for like my upward spiral board. If I'm starting to feel not enough, I have a little, what do I call it? My vision boards. So I included some of those words up there, just to remind me, because when we get in the space, and so many of us are at home, and you forget how awesome you are. You really do. And that's why it's important to map some of these things out, have that structure. Remember, track your wins, right? What did I do this week where I had success? Well, I had a great call with Jess, and we talked about this. And I'm going to make a note to follow up with her in 3 weeks. The other thing to think about, and I really feel for people that have never had any sales training, because job searching is so similar to sales. Do y'all agree? Because there is this whole process of like, here's my target list. These are the 10 or 15 companies that I would love to work with because they align with my passions and the things I'm interested in and the brands that I like to buy, right? And then I pick out 6 to 10 key people at the organization that have the job I want, maybe work in the department that I want to work in, or supervise the department I want, and I'm going to follow their content and try to engage with them, and then I'm going to track that activity for a period of time, and eventually, once I've earned kind of that trust by engaging in the content, then I'm going to make that sales call, right? And that sales call might look like a direct message to your ideal employer and say, hey, Dan, I see, you worked at Amazon. I've been following your content. I really love this post about your conversion at Amazon. I'm a software developer with 7 years. I applied to this rec number. Just wanted to introduce myself and let you know I applied. Let me know if you see my resume. Would love to talk, something like that. You've hit that person with some social credibility by showing up and kind of tapping them on a shoulder in a business development or social selling way to kind of get their attention, right? And then when you drop in to make the ask, you've actually had some street credibility or some currency that you put into that relationship before you're pitching them. Does that make sense to everyone? Hi, Junat. Hello. Yes. It is very much like sales. And I really feel like, the way the resume is not going anywhere, right? But LinkedIn's not going anywhere either. I mean, we have 810 million people and 3 people join every second. So stick around because the miracles just keep happening here on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn follows us our entire career. So it is in our best interest to, build our brand, build our visibility, showcase our skill sets and nourish these relationships publicly, right? Because the premise is if people see us having public conversations, they're going to trust to have private conversations with us. And so many times people are like, Anna, you're everywhere. And I'm like, I'm probably like the most inconsistent person that posts on LinkedIn, but I'm pretty consistent with commenting. And I go out and give. The more we give, the more we get. And that is something that really moved the needle for me on LinkedIn, and something that I tell everyone that I meet with in strategy calls or in my coaching, I remind them that, engagement is everything. And it's a way to socially job search, right? Because you can get noticed by your second and third degree connections by having those public conversations. So it is an exercise in sales. So, the other thought is if you have zero sales experience and you're kind of a social media introvert, maybe reach out to someone that you admire or kind of has some sales ability that you admire, and ask them, a couple key questions, open-ended questions like, what are some of the keys to be successful as a salesperson? Like, if you were an active job search, what would be the top, 5 things that you would focus on? Because there's a lot of moving parts in that, right? But timing is everything. And even in these uncertain times, consistency is what is going to win, in my humble opinion. Coming in and like throwing your resume everywhere and sending non-thoughtful emails and coming at people in this desperation energy, like they're going to feel that, right? You're going to get better results if you are intentional and strategic. Work smarter rather than harder. Intentional is always going to yield better results, even in uncertain times. Because while job seekers and longer unemployed people are going to be feeling this crunch, you can bet that the decision makers and the leaders of these organizations that are having to make these tough decisions, that are probably dealing with pandemic burnout and a myriad of other challenges from the leadership standpoint, you have to use language that is mutually beneficial to get the result. Okay. Let's see. We need these reminders. A brag flag. I love it. Cold calling is the worst. Closing the offer is the best. Yeah. And I think, Tegan, like those that have not been in sales, don't necessarily understand, for some of us that grew up cold calling, dialing, smiling for dollars, there's definitely a certain way to go about approaching people, especially on LinkedIn. So, just to recap, I would definitely be cognizant of the content that you're consuming. Definitely kind of turn down the noise a little bit, tune into yourself, take the time to really focus on your assets, your career stories that you can brag about, be intentional with your networking, do the kind of heavy lifting on the administrative side. So you're not having to kind of like recreate the outreach messages, right? You obviously want to have personalization. And I know, Tegan, you're welcome to drop any of your recent resources. I know you had given some great handoffs out recently, but ways that you can communicate more effectively when you're doing that outreach. But make sure you're getting your, meditation and exercise, your me time in, so that your brain gets that dopamine hit that helps you manage stress. Make sure that you're nourishing your body, getting plenty of sleep, because, these little tiny things that are just like common sense, when we are not executing those, that's when that stupid rejection email comes in from that random job that you applied to 3 weeks ago that you had forgotten about. That's when it like takes that shoelace moment and makes us lose our mind, right? So that's why I say consistency in this market, in these uncertain times, like you have to take radical action to support yourself during this time. And if there's any time to be a little like hyper selfish, this is it. But you also want to make sure that you are, doing the activities that are always in service of moving you to a conversation that converts to an interview. Spending time on LinkedIn that is going to create a conversation or an opportunity that is going to open that door, right? I always encourage, having conversations on LinkedIn with super cool, awesome people, right? But I recommend that you work from a favorites list or a target list, so you're not at the mercy of what LinkedIn just serves you in the newsfeed, because they're just going to serve you kind of based on what you've done. And you control what your strategy on LinkedIn. So it's really important that you drive that bus and, also control your inbox, and, just be vigilant with your time, because those things will kind of settle your nerves, give you some peace and serenity as you're going through this time. And honestly, like, what I'm seeing in the market is just massively confusing. The industry analysts, agree that they have kind of messed up with their forecasting. I mean, the unemployment rate was lower last month, but we have seen in just the last, I'd say, couple of weeks, a mass increase in applications for unemployment. So I think the numbers that are going to come out here soon are going to reflect more realistically the downturn that we are experiencing. The data will support, some of the posts that we've been seeing on the platform. And so the last thing I want to address is, for the folks that have been longer term unemployed, and that are seeing these posts of people, that are going viral about recent layoffs, and you may feel that they're getting scooped up in all of the attention. Perception is not reality, one, so remember that. And two, pay attention to who's engaging in those content, in that content, right? Leverage the conversations that are happening in those posts. Look at who the recruiters are, who the hiring managers are, who the organizations are, and see if there's any opportunities for you to start conversations, right? That's not sleazy in my mind. That's just working smart. The second thing is, if sometimes when you've been in longer term job search, you forget about the basics, right? Have you gone back to the contacts in your phone? Have you gone back and looked at your connections on social media? Are you talking to, the people in your close network, your neighbors, the people at your church or that you volunteer with, or, that you're standing on the sidelines on the soccer field with? Sometimes those are some of the most unlikely connections, but that can make the easiest introductions. And I know some people feel uncomfortable about like slipping in a conversation that they're in job transition, but it's totally normal. Everybody has jobs. Everybody's lost jobs. Everybody's looked for jobs. So stand in your power. Don't be afraid to network in a little bit of those non-traditional ways, outside of LinkedIn and outside of applying for a job, because we have to think a little bit differently in this market to create different results. And then the last thing is, again, thinking about what I would do if I wasn't able to get a talent acquisition or recruiting job. I grew up in the hospitality world. So when I first moved to Atlanta back in 2000, I had like an inside sales job. I was making, no, my first job at Apple One, I made $28,000 plus a 3% gross margin. I was just learning recruiting. And that wasn't enough for us to live on. We had moved from Boston, and we had worked in a high-end microbrewery, and we were bringing home each approximately six figures from working in the restaurant. So while the cost of living in Atlanta was much less than Boston, I was like, what can I do to augment my income? And so I went and worked at like the J. Christopher's breakfast place. And I would work every Saturday and Sunday from, 5:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I would come home with, 150, $200. So I would also look at stopgap jobs. I would look at contract work right now, because I still feel we're going to see a huge rise in the gig economy. I think companies that are feeling the pinch of the expense of hiring are probably going to look at companies like I represent with Rocket Power to have, on-demand recruiting teams come in and do the work and stabilize teams and pop out. I think employers are going to have to be more open to bringing in part-time work. So, keep your eye on those types of opportunities and, be a little bit open to more creative work, right? And sometimes it's totally okay to have a couple part-time jobs or to augment your income with something temporarily. It doesn't mean that you have to do that job forever. One of my fellow connections, she's an entrepreneur. She likes to stay active, and she's written 2 books, and she coaches, and she's a former soccer player, and she likes to stay active. And so she, has taken shifts at Costco, but it's all about just, kind of putting the pieces together to make it work during this time, because we're seeing that there's no perfect traditional way to do work anymore. And we're really being less judgmental about that process. So I hope this has been valuable. You all are amazing, and try to stay calm and carry on. I really appreciate everyone showing up week after week. Please remember to follow CareerBFF. And I was laughing hysterically last night. I went over to my YouTube page, and y'all, I know very little about YouTube. It's kind of a miracle that I broadcast here, YouTube, and live at Facebook at the same time. But I have 5 subscribers. So if y'all want to go subscribe to my YouTube page, you can say, I knew Anna when she only had 5 subscribers on YouTube, because we all know that Career BFF and Anna Morgan's going to be, amazing, big, huge, epic someday. All right. Y'all have an amazing week. Thank you. I am here. I am the Career BFF in your corner, here every week at noon. And you all have an awesome, amazing day. Mwah!